Well, France 24's Wassim Nasr travelled to Syria a week after the regime fell. He crisscrossed the country to witness history and to get a sense from Syrians from Damascus to Idlib and the Alawite coastal heartlands how people feel now about the end of the Assad era. So look, Wassim, it's really good to get your perspective on this remarkable story. Before we talk about your journey itself, though, take us back to before Assad was toppled, because the first city that fell was Aleppo. And of course, the fighters there played a key role in making sure that city fell. But you've also learned that there was a political role happening as well behind the scenes in Aleppo. This hasn't really been reported very much elsewhere. So tell us what you found out.
Indeed, actually, there was really harsh battles on the fronts of Sarakib and Khan al-Assad. We have footage of Sarakib. Maybe we can see it. So you see how destructed it is. This is the old front between regime areas and the HTS areas. And the other footage, you will see the destruction inside. But as you said, there's a part which stayed underreported is the political part of it. Because I saw a very prominent rebel leader in Aleppo when I was there, and he told me that they started working on Sunni factions who were backing the regime inside the city of Aleppo as early as 2 years and a half back, like trying to convince them to change sides, to go on the side of the rebels. And he told me that those people found themselves on the sides of the regime because of some vengeance issues there, because some of their leaders were killed by the rebels in 2011. So time passed, and Assad, thinking that he won, he put them aside in the city of Aleppo. And this played in the hands of rebels, and this way they convinced them to turn sides. And while advancing on those fronts, they were telling their other, it's the same clan actually, telling their same clan counterparts, but on the side of Assad, to put down arms and to go and to retreat. And that's actually what happened all the way to the neighborhoods of Aleppo. And this which explains, and we have footage of the night when Aleppo fell, and here it is. And that was provided to me by the fighters actually who entered Aleppo. And this is the first minutes, maybe, when they entered the city of Aleppo. We have another footage at night, but we also have a footage from the first morning, which is very, very interesting, as you will see, because as I saw the town, it was actually the same the next day. It was very peaceful. People were very joyful. Maybe we can see it. It's next to the citadel. Here it is. And you see fighters mixing with the population. And which I saw also when I was there. They were selling the revolutionary flags, no sign of Assad. So if you didn't notice the destruction all around the citadel, you won't think a second that this city witnessed a fight less than 24 hours or less than a week ago. And this is the political part of the takeover of Aleppo, which also helped taking other cities without much fighting except Hama, because people on the side of the army saw that if they put down arms, they won't be killed immediately. So they were not fighting for their lives, they were fighting for Assad if they kept on fighting. And actually, an army soldier paid less than 20 euros a month wouldn't want to die for Assad. And it played the political side of it played a really big role in what happened in Aleppo and next.
And so those images we were looking at were from Aleppo that you filmed when you were there. You went from there to Damascus, the capital. Tell us about your journey there, but crucially, what happened when you arrived, because you met with the man who is now effectively the leader of Syria. His name is Ahmed al-Sharaa. He is the head of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. So he used to run the province of Aleppo. He now basically runs the whole country. And you had remarkable access because you met him in 2023 and you were part of a very small group of journalists who met him just a few weeks ago.
Yes, exactly. And maybe what facilitated me meeting him very quickly this time is the fact that I met him a year and a half back when nobody used to go to Idlib at the time. And everybody was afraid to go to Idlib. So I went there and I met him at the time, and even met his actual Minister of Foreign Affairs, who is really the architect of the relations of HTS with the outside world. And this is also very political. Here, this is what we are seeing here is the road to Damascus, actually. It's a few blocks, maybe a few kilometers, from Damascus. And what's interesting is to see the level of destruction. No checkpoints on the road now between Aleppo and Damascus, which is very notable, but the destruction is really huge. all over the place. And you see like cities here, as you see, rumble, you know. There's nothing that stands. And this needs a lot of money to get reconstructed. And this echoes what Ahmed al-Sharaa told me and what he asked me, and he repeated to other journalists after the lifting of the sanctions. And on this part of this story, like lifting the sanctions, some of them are easy to lift, meaning those who targeted Hafiz al-Assad, the father of Bashar al-Assad, for relations with North Korea, for the occupation of Lebanon, for ballistic missiles and whatever. Those can be lifted very easily. The hard part of it is the Caesar law sanctions, because in the United States they put some checks in case the administration changes and Assad is still here, so there will be no normalization. So to lift those checks and balances, I don't know if I'm expressing myself, but it is very hard. It's a legal issue. It is a hard legal issue, but really strictly legal and not political. So to get over it, you can suspend some of them, as the US did for 6 months for some of the sanctions, because the risk, if nothing is lifted, if the sanctions are maintained, is that the country will never be back on its feet again, and it will be an open theater for foreign intervention as it was before, and maybe another phase of the war instead of ending the war.
And look, did you notice a big change in him personally? Because as I said, you met him in 2023.
Yeah.
He has been trying to rebrand how he looks, hasn't he? But did you see a change in the kind of things that he says?
Well, actually, even in his looks, he looks the same as when I met him in 2023. When I met him in 2023, he was dressed as a civilian with a black shirt, and actually what he said was the same. Some things he told me at the time were meant to be like confidential, but actually one of the things he told me is that the only way to topple Assad will be military. And I thought at the time that maybe they're not able to do it. But actually, at the end of the day, he did it. But everything, all his demands, at least regarding the West, at least when he said that they have nothing to do anymore with jihad, international jihad, and international terrorism. Well, what he told me in 2023, he just repeated it now. So many people think that he is like, those are communication stunts, you know, but it is very costly for him. And his former second in command, for example, was killed by a suicide bomber in the beginning of last year because of all those changes that they are making. So, and whenever they make a change, it could get very costly internally for HTS.
Okay, we don't have lots of time, unfortunately, and there's a couple of questions I want to get through with you. You went to Idlib, you went to Christian villages. Again, these were areas you visited in 2023. Did you see a big change in those areas?
Well, I saw change in the Christian villages, and we have footage on the road to Idlib where you see tanks and transports and left behind the roads. And what I saw in the Christian villages, it's what was, for example, there was a church that was being restored or repaired in 2023. I saw it already repaired, and we have maybe the picture of this church with the Christmas festivities being prepared. Those are pictures from 2023. So as you see, it was getting restored, and then you'll see that they did it actually. And what I saw also, I saw the priest in that village, and he told me on the 8th of December, we ringed our bells, despite the fact that they were prohibited from ringing bells at the time. And he said, we have today the authorization of HTS to ring our bells, and we'll ring them on Christmas. And that's what happened on Christmas actually. And I met also the head of the Latin church in Aleppo, which I met in Idlib at the time, who was himself a former hostage of the Nusra Front, of Al-Qaeda, you see. And he was named by the Vatican before the takeover of Aleppo as the head of the church, the Latin church in Aleppo. So he became a kind of intermediary between HTS and other Christian communities. And at the end of the day, he told me, of course, there are some worries for the Christian community, but things are being done the right way. And we saw, for example, that there was no exodus of minorities in the cities that were taken. We saw there was no massacres. We saw that there was like local communities, minorities, even the Alawites, did not take up arms to defend Assad. And this is very important.
Yeah, you talked about the Alawite communities. Just very quickly on that, do you think that they have abandoned him completely from what you saw when you were in the coastal areas?
Well, actually, he abandoned them, you see, because when I went through them, we have footage also, when I went through Latakia, I saw that people were very poor. I saw that some of the villages are like maybe villages of the beginning of the 20th century. And I saw that there was no uprising from the Alawite community to defend the Assad regime. And we saw later that HTS were able to capture those people working for the regime in a mostly easy way, as I saw. And we went all the way to the beach. Maybe you can see the beach. We went to a beach where one of the persons with me, he told me, this is the first time I get to the beach. And my grievances aren't against the Alawites. They are against my cousins who took over our home when we fled Assad. His cousins, meaning Sunnis like him. So to repair the Syrian society today, and especially also before talking about minorities, for the Sunni majority, is also a big challenge, either for HCS or the international community.
Wassim Nasr, thank you very much indeed then for giving us an insight to your rather remarkable reporting in Syria. Wassim Nasr for us there.